Imagine someone trying to kidnap your mother again and invading your home, threatening everything if you worked so hard to build. That's the harsh reality I'm facing right now in the Amazon in Brazil, where criminals are relentless, trying to take my family and my farm. Life, as I come to learn, my friends, is truly about contributions, not acquisitions. Today, I'm incredibly grateful, besides all the chaos, to our next guest, who is sponsoring this episode in a time where it is needed most. Despite these challenges, we remain committed to our mission of providing food to the hungry children in the nearby communities, my properties in the Amazon. But the rising danger has made it more difficult and costly. In response, as you guys know, I started this podcast initiative to highlight incredible leaders and stories in the hope of raising more funds for our causes. Typically, we ask donations of $9.99 or more, but today's guest has gone beyond generosity, my friends, contributing $10,000 to help us continue this critical work. I couldn't be more thankful for his support and the profound impact it will have on these communities. My next guest, Rick Grunden, is a visionary entrepreneur who started his first business, Green Tumbed Grundens, as a teenager and quickly scaled his ventures, including managing 10,000 distributors for a health and nutrition business at just 21 years old. A sought-after capital raiser and consultant for billion-dollar companies like Meta and Microsoft. Rick now leads the Wealth Investment Group, the largest accredited only investing group globally, consistently delivering 140% net ROI through innovative, low-risk investment strategies. Again, guys, you guys know this show. I know that it's lame, but I love to drop a disclaimer. Nothing here in this show is to be constituted as legal as or financial advice. But as you know, it's about to go down. It's another inspiring episode of the Carlos Inspire Show. And in the spirit of giving, Rick is offering an extraordinary gift, up to 8 days, 7-night resort stay to several dozen lucky listeners of our show. This is a rare opportunity to experience luxury while unlocking the secrets to financial freedom. All thanks to Rick's generosity. Welcome to the show, my friend, my brother, from another mother, Rick, a.k.a. Grunden. How are you, my brother?
I'm doing fantastic, and thank you so much for having me on your show. You have been an inspiration to me ever since I saw you several years ago now on that stage in San Diego, you and your daughter who stole the show. I first said that I don't want to just meet and shake this guy's hand. I want to become friends with him. I want him in my life. And then 2 seconds later, because everyone had been invited to bring their kids to that event, you brought out a very shy looking young gal and with holding a little stuffed animal in her hands, peeking around the side of the stage. And we were all like, oh, and you encouraged her to come on, give her a little hand, give her some encouragement. We all cheered like, come on, and she came out there and very sheepishly walked out and then threw the stuffed animal in the audience, grabbed the microphone and started giving the world's best inspirational talk. And just, it was the most shocking thing I've ever seen. I've been on stages all over the world, but I said, okay, I don't need to know just this guy. I need to know his daughter. And then later met your beautiful wife, and you become obviously dear friends, and grateful to have you in my life.
Yeah, my brother, same here, brother, same here, man. I'm grateful to also, knowing you about all these years, and we've seen our kids growing up, and now they are out there doing their thing. It is just, it goes fast, man. She's about to turn 13 in a week from now, exactly. Yeah. So she's all fired up. I'm getting to my teenage years, Daddy. I said, don't you grow so fast? But brother, wow, man, I prepared a great episode. But again, thanks again, man, for all the generosity that you do around the world, for all the people that you help. As you know, I'm over here in Silicon Valley in my studio right now, but I'm back and forth between here and Brazil and dealing with extreme chaos down there. As I often preach, right? New levels, new devils. When you start speaking around the world, interviewing celebrities, athletes, when you become a public figure in US, they, in third world countries like in Brazil, in Mexico, they'll try to kidnap you, they'll try to hurt you, they'll go after your family. and they would invade your properties like they've been doing to my farms. And it's just making it a little bit more harder for us to continue to do what we do, especially when your family is involved. And I mean, why not come after me, not go after my mom or my brother? And that's the part, or my nephews and nieces. That's the stuff that bothers me. But thank God, we amp up security. Is like donations from guests like you and previous guests that have been on our show, some of my celebrity friends and athlete friends, they all love contributing and stuff like that, man. It keeps us feeding those neighborhoods, the churches, the families. I know that you are big in initiatives with churches, which we're going to talk about on the show today. But I'm really looking forward to this episode, Rick. And man, you build an empire in finance. But what I find interesting about you, bro, is how deeply rooted your philosophy is in giving back. How do you see the act of giving playing like a role in building financial freedom, Rick?
Well, again, I've been raised as a Christian my whole life, and the art of tithing, giving to others, it's never about trying to get something back for yourself. The whole point about is the gift, and it's just amazing how God is always just multiplied every time, even when I'm like, well, I'm really trying to give that which I was just giving back, and it still comes back even more. And so I honestly, only God knows your true heart. I'm not giving in order to get back, but I just can't help but acknowledge it, and would point these things out to my son, who was raised, his mother sadly was an atheist. And my son is now a Christian, not because I forced him to be a Christian or told him he had to be a Christian or told me he had to go to church, or it was literally just leading by example, seeing the light. And now he's a very faithful person, has his own relationship with God. And my point is that, again, every single time you feed somebody, every single time you give somebody money, every time you've clothed somebody, given somebody, let someone stay, given somebody a ride, God says, you're doing it to me. And I've taught in prisons. My mom has taught in prisons, and we've done to the highest regard, talking to stages, trying to elevate people. I just spent several days at the Be Bold for Jesus conference in Spokane, and just literally getting to talk in front of 5,500 people and giving them the blessing of that inspiring message that you can be brave. It only takes just one communication, one talk. I brought more people to the light when I was maintaining my faith during the darkest times. Yeah. I woke up to a bank scandal, a domestic bank scandal here in the United States. It wasn't some offshore, oh, you sent your money to, no, it was Arkansas. And got a call one day where, my assistant, I came in and I'm going through I was at a very long meeting, lunch, 2 hours. And I came in, had about 5 messages, and I'm going, oh, I know them. And I got to this other message, and it literally said Asia, called Asia. And the last name was like a very common American name, like Wilson or something. And I was like, it was a 310 number. I lived in Los Angeles at the time. And I said to my assistant, like, Asia, like nobody's called Asia. And he's like, yeah, definitely. I said, well, did you have them spell it? He goes, I didn't need to. They were very articulate. And I said, well, did she? And he goes, oh, it was a he. And I just rolled my eyes. I'm like, nobody's named Asia, especially not a guy, so I just out of curiosity, I had to go call that number first. And long story short, I dial this 310 number, and and it says Los Angeles Bureau of Federal Investigations, and I just hung up the phone. It was just like, I went in there and I said, could it have been Agent Wilson? And he's like, oh, maybe. And what that turned into was being told that the money that had been frozen in my account at this domestic bank, he asked when I called back in, they asked me to be on a call and introduce yourself. And I thought it was just a one-on-one call. It turned out to be a group call by everyone who was a member of that bank. And I was sitting there. I just had finished, these 3 to 4 events I would do a year where someone else put on the event. I would just show up to this very high qualified audience, and I would offer the opportunity to participate in 5 of our, top rung investments. And at that investment, I'd raised $62.5 million between those 5 companies in a 9-day event. Wow. And I give people 3 weeks to participate afterwards. There's no real deadline. I just have to draw a line in the sand and, force people to do their due diligence. We give them a roadmap. But all of a sudden, at the last day, nobody could move money in or out of that bank. And, just sitting there frozen in your account. They said they were in the middle of some investigation. So now I'm on the phone with the FBI, and they announced to everybody with us all on the phone call that the owners of the bank, whose husband and wife team were fugitives of the law, that the $108 million that they stole from the entire bank, $62.5 million of that $108 was in my account. And it just was the beginning of a, worst time in my life. And that compound effect was just a domino that led me to literally lose everything and end up being negative because I, came out of my own pocket. I had $110 million net worth at the time, and I could liquidate things, but at a loss. When you have to liquidate things before their time, just like selling a house in a rapid form, you're gonna take a hit. So my $110 million net worth turned into -2 by the time I was done with everything. And I say -2, meaning you can't pay -2. I couldn't take care of over $2 million worth of those people until a few years later. And so it was the most devastating time of my life. And I had an assistant that said they, became an alcoholic because of the stress that I should have been feeling. I worked with the FBI for a year and a half until these people were caught. And unfortunately, there was no money recovered, nothing to be given back. And I was promised by the FBI that I would get everything back and blah, 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 because I had no obligation to give up any of my money for these people. It had nothing to do with me. And it's a horrible story. But the point was, I sat there, when you hear about like your daughter being inspired, some of the things she says on stage, I don't think are coming from her thought. I think God is just saying things through her, Holy Spirit.
Amen.
My son, he, as a way too young beyond his years, sat there and said like, "Hey Dad, like, I think I know why God put you through that. Why, you lost everything and gave up all your wealth for these people that weren't even your responsibility." I was literally, looking to the face of this young kid saying like, yeah, let me in on it. I have no idea. Like, why would anyone? And he's like, well, he goes, there was over 400 something people that made up your clients. I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, I'm sure not all of them. He goes, but I'm confident that some of suffering this massive loss might have chosen to end their life over the loss, thinking that was the best outcome for their family, to take care of them as, ending their life. And he says, by knowing that God gave you the gift to be able to go out and make new money and create this incredible wealth, to lose that kind of wealth at that age. And he says, and this is when we had nothing, the pool is green with larvae. I couldn't even afford to put the, $4 a week I was putting those bleach from the 99-cent store in my pool, not to swim in it, of course, just to try to keep the green larva down. And I couldn't even afford that anymore. So at that lowest point, where we lost everything,
Wow.
He's literally telling me, like a Vince Lombardi speech, like, you're the most amazing in the world. You're going to go out and do this, and you're going to recreate everything. I forgot the whole beginning of the story. The whole beginning of the story started with him literally crying and saying it was his fault of why I lost everything. And I said, what? I was just like, it's like when parents get divorced and the child's like, is it my fault? You're like, what? No, honey, it's like, you run to try to make sure they know it wasn't their fault. In this situation, I'm like, how could he possibly think this is his fault? Like, and he says, well, Dad, when I was born, you were already wealthy. And I've often said, I wish I would have, seeing you now having everything, and we had, live-in staff and chefs and drivers and, Ferraris and all these beautiful mansions. And he's just like, I've always said, like, I wish I would have seen you build, create it all. And he says, I'm worried that everything happened to you because of my wish but I get my wish answered. Now I'm going to get to see you. And he just did this amazing speech. I'm going to get to see you create from the ground up and build everything right before my eyes, which he has done, right? He's seen me build it all back and then some. And then we got to this point about why, the big reason why it was not just because of that, but because these people that he thought might very well have ended their lives over that kind of loss. And so, yeah, it's
wow.
It's
what
incredible.
a story, brother. You like, I love your stories, man. That's like, wow. And, and I pray, me, I pray. You and I we do a lot of things that we often talk about is between us and God. And I think with you as your mom and with me was my grandma, getting out there and helping the charities, cooking, going looking after the homeless people and giving them money, asking the stuff that I often talk about is between us and God that we don't put on social media, and wow, man, just I often say, man, giving isn't just charity, it's a strategy for lasting impact. I mean, true wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in how many lives we can change. And you and I, we've been blessed to be raised well and raised Christians, and having faith and family big deep in our background. And wow, man, and wow, just incredible. Damn, you got me thinking here, going way back on the street days with my grandma. But Rick, I mean, your site, one of your initiatives with Get Time and financialfreedom.com is all about helping people reclaim their time and achieve financial freedom. And for you guys that have been listening to me for a while, I've been talking a lot about time lately, right? Helping people make more money, grow their brand so they can now hire staff and then buy their time back, eventually replace themselves, find a CEO, a CMO, a CFO, and better teammates to run their business so that they can spend time with their kids. Like your mom spend with you, now you can spend with yours, I can spend with my daughter. So then we can go out there and do more of the stuff that fill us. But what inspired you to get involved with a platform like this? And how does that tie into your mission of making a difference? Can you tell a little bit more about that?
Well, there's several things. That the first and foremost thing was I did used to run the largest accredited only investor group in the world. And it's not anything that somebody goes to school to become accredited for. It's just a definition given by the government that says this person has enough money that they can afford to lose if they get involved in an investment. It's not a publicly traded company, a private placement, which is a pre-IPO or privately held company. And it's just, again, I was raised as a super poor kid in northern Idaho and lived on a ranch before that. And just to think of this big red velvet line where I couldn't legally help somebody unless they already had $1 million net worth, excluding their main home, right? Or made $200,000 a year in income the previous 2 years and expected to make the same or greater the current year, or together with their spouse made $300,000 the previous 2 years and expect to make the same or greater. So having that be the minimum requirement for me just to be able to help you. And it goes back to that we've heard all these sayings along our lives: the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. My incredible returns were only for people that didn't need them. Of course, they'd appreciated the great returns. Of course, they appreciated adding more zeros, moving up to another neighborhood, but they were already wealthy by anybody's standards. And who I really wanted to help, it's not that I don't want to help those people. I still help those people, right? They can still be customers of mine, but I was inspired to help everybody. And, I did the best I could with the cash flows I've been still doing now since 2019. That was all inspired by my parents, who had made an incredible retirement. And then my dad's dementia caused him to make some mistakes and lose it all. And it was just like, he literally has set standards that can never be broken. Mathematically, they can be equaled if someone else gets 100% on these exams that they had to take for aptitude in the engineering field. So for him to make mistakes was just, it had to be the dementia, right? To do all this stuff. And so that was what the inspiration was, to start that business where I was paying people an exorbitant amount. I didn't have to pay people 140% profit a year, but I did that to compress time so they could have a retirement for people that were normal people that either never had it and were just scared about retirement, or people that had it and lost it like my parents did. But then one of my customers who did buy a cash flow for their parents, who's literally within a month or two of my age, he had 5 kids, plus he was looking after his parents. And he was saying, hey, is this only for retirees, or could I buy a cash flow? And that's what opened up the whole market to be able to help people from all over the place. But I still had these high minimums of $100,000, which it still excluded most people. And so 2 reasons that I got inspired to do this platform was that it allowed people to get started with something as little as $500, which I didn't know anybody that couldn't, round that up some way, somehow. Even if they had to go through my funding company at givescash.com, they could go get funding, right, with 0% interest. And so I knew that this was a way they could do it at the smaller dollar levels. And then even though I'd found out about it, I didn't really get involved. We've all probably done that before where, I'm going to do something. I kept putting it off. I was so busy with everything else I was doing. But I really got inspired by a guy, a very strong Christian kid named Jimmy Darts. It's not his actual name. I'm trying to think of his actual name off the top of my head, but he goes by Jimmy Darts on all the different social media platforms. And he coined this phrase, undercover kindness. And it caught my heart in such a way. There was a favorite book series of mine that I'm sure everyone's heard about, or at least most of the audience has probably heard about, Chicken Soup for the Soul. The reason why it was called Chicken Soup for the Soul was that it gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling, just like if you're sick. That's why mom would give you chicken soup. It's not that it had some, healing mechanism that, the chicken combined with those big fat white noodles and combined with the broth. No, it just made you feel amazing and hopefully made you feel better. And that's what the modern day Chicken Soup for the Soul is to me, is watching a guy like Jimmy Darts, who instead of just going out and gifting people money, he was looking for ways to put a spotlight on people's kindness. And he would purposely go to low income areas. He would even approach people that were out on the street themselves, begging for money. He was, finding somebody selling mops. He just looks for people. And then he's asking them very humbly and secretively, and he's wearing some kind of hidden camera. And he's asking, excuse me, either I'm really hungry and I just need a couple dollars. Do you mind so I can get a burrito or something? Or, hey, I'm trying to buy this for my daughter, or something where or need to get on the bus. I just need $1 or $2 is typically the dollar amount. And when somebody helps him and says, yeah, even though you can tell that they're in need themselves, right? He turns around and surprises them and gifts them $500. And then sometimes it's $1,000. He's partnered with some people where he's given $10,000. And then his followers are so incredible. So one of my favorite things he does is, and this is the second line of very similarity to this other program that came to the front of my mind all of a sudden when I was inspired by him, was, and I'll be the first one to admit that if someone gave me the choice of saying, would you rather have $500 yourself, or would you rather gift somebody gift people in the store $1,000? And so many people are like, I'd rather gift people $1,000. And I think that's amazing. But I'm literally sitting there saying, please don't judge me and make me feel like I'm a horrible person, because I'd be like, I'll take the 500. If I want to gift it, my $500 away, I will. But I definitely would rather, hold that in my hands. But then I just get so inspired by these people that even though they're shopping at a Walmart and probably needing low cost and don't have enough, and they're like, I'd rather give it. And then they go around giving these $100 bills to 10 people and watching their, the hugs come out, complete strangers it's inspiring. And then he'll turn around and say, hey, because you chose to give away the 1,000 instead of getting that 500, here's 1,000 for you. And it's just obviously a tearful moment. And that's what the inspiration was. And then to go in a bigger sense, I just simply said, wouldn't it be great when you hear and see the reactions, people crying, people getting emotional over this gift of $500 or $1,000 or sometimes $10,000. And they're just like, it's so life-changing. And I'm thinking, what if you could give somebody a system where they would be getting those $500 gifts or $1,000 gifts or $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 gifts all the time, just endlessly. And a gift, right? If you receive a gift in the United States, and every country has their own rules, but it's very, very similar. In America right now, I can gift anybody, if I have the money to do so, I can gift somebody up to $18,000, right? And they don't have to pay taxes on it. That's tax-free, legal tax-free money. And the way I liked about this system was that no one person gifts you more than $10,500. That's the most that one person gifts you. So, literally almost just a little over half of what the limit is. So I really love that aspect of it. But the big point is, I sat here in a way where Jimmy's fans would often hear a story, be touched by someone's generosity, their kindness, their, when they sit there and say, thank you so much. And then they tell their story about why this $500 or this $1,000 impacted them so much and why they got emotional. And then their fans are like, go create a GoFundMe page or a Cash App account, and they'll gift them in 24 hours. They're gifting these people $14,000, $25,000, $40,000, I've seen $70,000. I've seen over $100,000 gifted to a complete stranger that he just met yesterday. And that kind of impact, I said, my gosh, that's got to feel amazing, right? To give that away. And again, I was Oprah's bodyguard, as many other celebrities, being my gigantic self and Mr. Gold medal wrestler, national championship football player. So I got to see firsthand someone like Oprah, who obviously has more than any of us could possibly dream of, probably. And yet, just when you get to know her on a personal level, and again, these aren't things that she publicizes. She certainly publicizes some in schools and things she's created. She's bringing awareness to something, but hearing how much she gives privately, and she's like, don't tell this to people, so I'm not going to tell you, but I'm just telling you that it's more than you can imagine. And she says, I'm not doing it for any other reason. I've got so much. It's just honestly feels so good. And I'm like, yes, it does feel so good. So those are my big inspirational moments. When I saw that this program seemed to match up exactly with those things, I felt it was a sign that I was supposed to focus on this and, again, open up the opportunity for me to bless people even more so. This is going to be shocking to you, more so than I do for my higher end clients, that the minimums are 100,000, which we're changing this year moving forward. By the way, we're going into international markets using all that new AI technology where I can offer my message in Italian or German or French or Chinese. And because I'm not having to teach them something, they can get that message of those things that I offer. And because it's different industry, countries, and their economies might be anywhere near America's economy. So giving 100,000 would seem unrealistic. So getting paid 20% a month on 10,000 or 5,000 even might be life-changing to someone in India. So we're removing all those minimums on that bigger stuff. So I'll be able to help people in those regards. But here's the trick. As much as it is for me to pay someone 140% profit a year, which that's over double the highest yielding hedge fund, which hedge funds cost $500,000 to $2.5 million just to get into. And the highest hedge fund last year paid 60%. I'm paying 140%. I've been doing it for years now. But here's the fact of it all. If I gave those customers access to this, what I'm talking to your audience about today, they could literally become the bank in the sense of, making a 2 to 3x on your money a month when you're putting, paid advertising. Again, there's all sorts of different tools that they use to get the word out for you. But one of those is through paid advertising, if you choose to. It's not something anyone has to do, but I'm just telling you, my experience in that industry was so life-changing, right? I'm a math genius. I have to use a calculator, unlike my father that could do, 9 decimal points out in math in his head. So I'm not that guy, but I know how to use a calculator just fine. And the first line in doing any math is usually estimating what the answer would be, right? And then I'll go do the math and just ballpark it first. But I was given an opportunity where traffic could be generated for something I owned, and just putting in $3,000 was all that I put into the traffic. And I said, you know what? My birthday's in June. It's in 6 months from now. My son's birthday is in June. Why don't you go ahead and put it in and just let it compound on itself, whatever it makes, put it back into more marketing, etc., for the next 6 months and surprise me. And again, if you would have asked me, just ballpark off the top of your head without giving a number, because no one promised me anything, right? I would have died if you came and gave me $150,000 in June. 6 months later, you're like, oh, by the way, here's the net outcome. I wouldn't touch it. It would have to be drug money or some illegal gotten gain. I'm not touching that money. I've seen the movies, right? Somebody's going to come looking for it. If you pull out your calculator and again, in the world of internet marketing or doing paid advertising to an offer that's a proven offer, this thing I'm going to be inviting people to has been around since 2001. This funnel has been going since 2004. And it's like, you can't have something running that many years that isn't working. Nobody could afford to keep it going, right? It has to.
Years.
Pardon me?
That's 20-year funnel.
It's a 20-year funnel. And so, yeah, what was I just saying? I was just talking about, what was I just saying? Unfortunately.
You were talking about how the funnel works and how what you're about to introduce in this 20-year funnel and how incredible it's working with advertising and
Oh, thank you. It was about that.
testing.
It was about the giving someone the ability to make that money themselves, right? And so when we sat here with the math, and I just, again, if you put in your calculator, right, first guess, right, and say, let's say you got 3x ROAS, right? A ROAS means return on ad spend. We use the term in investing in return on investment, but that's meant for when you buy an actual asset, stocks, bonds, real estate, precious metals, precious gems. But when you're buying advertising, it's not an investment. If the advertising does not work, you're going to lose your money, right? So there's nothing to, hold on to. But well, you should have tested. So you test on very small dollar amounts, and then you scale it up when it's working, right? So you start with $20 a day, $50 a day, $100 a day, and then you have something that wins. And you might have invested $1,000 before finding something that's actually working and getting a rate of return, and then you start putting in bigger money. And so let's just say, for example, just for fun, if you were getting a 3x, right, ROAS, meaning you put in $1 and got $3 back in a month, that's unheard of in stocks, bonds, real estate, all those things. They can't grow like that. But in advertising, you certainly can go buy an ad, and there's people get 9, 10, 12x on their ad spend. But we're just talking about the lowest end of that, where if I got 3x ROAS, return on ad spend, in a month, and I put in just $3,000 to start with, and I said, let it roll for 6 months, just off the top of your head, getting a 3x, and don't try to do the math. I know you're brilliant. Just try to spit out a guess. What do you think that would turn into in 6 months?
180,000.
180,000. My guess would have been 150,000. Just, quick off the head thing. I'm like, and like I said earlier, I would have defecated in my pants if that had happened, right? If someone came back, I would have been like, what? The actual answer, when you go in your calculator, right, just put in 3,000, hit times 3. You don't have to type anything more than that. Just keep hitting the equal sign and say in month 1, it would turn into 9,000. In month 2, it would turn into 27,000. In month 3, and just keep going through, it turns into $2.187 million in those 6 months. Wow. And that's why Einstein said the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest. Better to be on the receiving side of it than the other side of it. And so my point is that I sat here, the actual math was that we needed $1,200 a month, right, to pay for, this is after we'd lost everything. And I had to borrow against the only piece left. When I was in Cambodia and had everything stolen from me, the only thing left back in America after they stole all my storage and stuff that was supposed to be there for 5 to 10 years was this giant prized possession of mine that's a 7-foot long, 4-foot tall, 9-inch deep, single kiln-dried piece of teak carving. It was over $80,000 when I bought it. Obviously, it was worth a lot, but it was worth way more than that to me because it was a one-of-a-kind, meant and built and designed for me. So it was my biggest, greatest treasure, if you can imagine. And it was too heavy to steal because you'd take, 5 to 6 guys to pick up this thing. It was so heavy. And so they just left it, took everything else. But that piece is what I used to borrow the money to buy into that business that allowed me to have that transforming, life-changing moment where I sat there in that. So the actual math was, and I didn't want to confuse the situation with the actual math, but I asked for $1,200 a month, which was paying for the one room that my son and I shared, a master suite that had a master bathroom, but we had 2 queen-size beds, just like a hotel room, and my recliner chair, the one like I'm sitting in right now, which is what I have to work out of because of my back injury. And that's how I rebuilt my life from nothingness, was having that and having that 3,000. I got the $1,200 a month. So if you do the math and you take out the $1,200 each month, it turns into $1.75 million exactly.
Wow.
What we actually got was $2.89 million in those 6 months. So I was getting over a 3x ROAS. I was getting like a 3 point. It's a very small fraction over. Sounds like it would be a big number over. Just a small fraction over to get over that 3x. And so my point is, this information is more powerful than me paying 140% a year to somebody, because there isn't hardly anything to do with this either. That thing I do for those wealthy people, and have done for 5 years, that is definitely a do nothing. Just wire your money. We give you 20% a month for 12 months only, starting in 60 days. If they give us less than $500,000, starting in 90 days, if they give us $500,000 or more, but there's nothing for them to do. This is owning the funnel, if you will, right? It's owning the funnel yourselves. And whether you start at the 500 or can do all the different things all the way to 10,500, which is the most someone can do, that's the most they have to have this funnel that's been going for over 20 years, right? And being able to put in, they've got flat rate things that are $50 a month to do all your advertising. There's, does all the AI going out to thousands of people. You don't need more than that. But I'm saying if you did want more, yes, you can certainly pay for those ad things and have an opportunity to actually be the one reciprocate getting that, even if it's a 2x, right? 3x, those kind of returns or more is cataclysmic for you. That's not meant to promise anything. There's no implied guarantees of anything. I wasn't given a guarantee. No one told me I was going to get a 3x. That's just what I did get. And no one asked me the question ahead of time of what do you think you would get in 6 months? I didn't even give it a thought. I just simply said, can it give me the $1,200 a month? Yes, they said, should be able to do it. No problem. And then I said, just keep the rest and put it back into more marketing. And it had to be the Holy Spirit that told me that answer. Let me just back up for a second. You've seen the E-Trade commercials, right? The two brothers they do, one shows this, one shows that, Could you imagine not having anything, having to stay in someone's guest house and be on food stamps after having all the wealth that I'd had in my life? Can you imagine my son being so humbled and, like, Dad, what's going on, bro? Like we got robbed by a friend I'd known it wasn't a friend. It was an acquaintance I'd known for 18 years who stole everything from us again. And so, so humbling, so ridiculous, so everything. And to have that leap of faith to step forward in something and say, boom. If you can imagine if I hadn't been whispered in that suggestion, I'm assuming by the Holy Spirit to go ahead and say, just let it ride. Could you imagine if I didn't say that and said, yeah. So I put in the 3,000, it makes 9,000, right? Month one. And they're like, what do you want to do? And I said, well, yeah, put in 3,000 more, right? And I take the 6, like I had so many backed up bills. I could have easily, right, spent the 6,000, given $1,000 here and hey, I know I owe you a lot more than this, but I'm going to start paying this back and paying that back. Like, of course I could have done it. And if you were my buddy back then, we hadn't met each other yet in 2019, but soon after that, but I would have been high-fiving you saying how God is so great. God is so great that I came from not having anything to now having a cash flow that's producing $6,000 a month. Could you imagine? You would have been celebrating me, would have been like giving God all the glory. Like, this is amazing. And I wouldn't have known how close I was to making millions, right?
Wow.
That one little change inspired, chose me to go this way. It wasn't a thing I had in my dream. It wasn't something I was like, I heard God's voice. I'm just saying it wasn't my thought.
It's funny you say that because I often tell people, like, reinvest. When you find something that works, reinvest that capital back in your business. And like, go like Elon Musk. Like I did a post earlier today about Elon Musk. Like Elon goes all in. He put 80 to 100 hours a week he has to, because he knows, that temporary sacrifice, it will lead to so much in the near future, like which I often talk about, buying your time back. And what an incredible story, man. What an incredible story. And like, just for you to having the discernment going through all this chaos. Like I tell people, life is full of ups and downs. And wow, man, wow, just incredible. And Rick, how do you do like tools like this, right? Get Times and financialfreedom.com that you are describing to us, not only build wealth, but also help people invest in causes that matter to them?
Well, the great thing is that obviously through starting this ripple effect, right? You're helping people you don't even know all over the world, right? That are getting that opportunity to, come in, be able to make that money themselves and be able to gift just them own selves. But for me personally, we heard an incredible story today about this, organization that goes to, they're taking kids that are living inside the dumps over in, countries that you can't even imagine, like on the other side of the world, and bringing them to God and giving them food and doing, but incredible things. And I can, after being fully qualified at all these different pay lines inside this gifting activity, I can gift to a charity. I can gift to a church. I can choose to make a gift to veterans, right? To give them $500 off any of these different packages. If I want to help veterans, if I want to help anybody. And so that having that ability to give something of real value, it's not just a one-time gift. It's literally starting a never-ending flow. And you'll see that when we describe what it actually is that this little ripple effect, it was created by a couple, tax attorneys, which most people think of attorneys and, but I know my tax attorneys, these are not mine. Yeah, there's very valuable people to have, and saving you, that is, people always find out that is your biggest expense in life, right? People think, oh, it's my house. Nope. Taxes is your biggest expense. And so having a great tax attorney, a great tax strategy is incredible. And this literally creates tax-free income for life. And when you talk about comparing apples to apples, not only are the people that are on this call right now, where I don't even introduce this to the people on my call, I want them to pay me this fortune to give them 140% a year. I don't want to get in something where the most that I would ever receive is $10,500, and then they're off making all this money themselves. I'm giving that gift to your audience, right? My point is that in that conversation of watching things multiply, having control over it, these guys created something that it starts with that universal law. It's better to give than to receive. So the first action is, in order to receive all those amazing gifts that they've created in this system, you first have to gift somebody, right? And there's all these different, I call them ATM machines. That's my language, and that's not inside this activity. They don't call it an ATM. I'm just coining that because we all know what an ATM machine. We go to an ATM to get something. And so imagine if you had an ATM machine that only gave $500, right? And you had another machine that only gave $1,000. Another machine that only gave $2,000 and $3,000, and another one that only gave $4,000. And if you wanted that machine, first you had to gift somebody $500, whatever that dollar amount that machine spits out. You have to gift somebody that you don't know. This isn't about going down to your neighbor that you know is struggling and saying, hey, Leroy, I've seen you struggling. I'd like to give you $500. You can still give that person $500, but in this system, it's about the system tells you who to give it to, right? So in this case, it's your inviter. Whoever invited you, you're giving them that $500. And now the system is going to go out that you join and pay for. And the system goes out and finds somebody for you. And the question that's being asked basically is, who would like to have a system that creates endless tax-free gifts for life, right? If someone really understood what that question was asking, if they really understood it, there's not a single person that wouldn't be like, yeah, I would like a system that created endless tax-free gifts. Of course I would. So imagine that first person that comes forward and says, yes, I would like that. And we're just using the example of the $500 ATM. It's the same exact principle for all the different $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, and $4,000. You first have to gift somebody, and then you have to pass up the first person. So the first person comes from my system that should be mine. And the system, it doesn't even give me the choice to be honest or not. The system says, no, pass that up to somebody. Pass that up to somebody. And that's what it does, right? So now you're fully qualified to receive for the rest of time and eternity in that activity. Please. So all of a sudden you sit there in a situation of saying, now the next time your system goes out and finds somebody that says, yes, I would like to give, that is your receiving line number one. And we call it a receiving line because now you're in the mode of receiving. And they have to do what? They have to gift somebody. They give it to you. So here they're giving you that gift of $500. Fantastic. Guess what they have to do? They have to give you their first person. So their system goes out and finds somebody, Lisa, and Lisa gives you $500. And then Lisa has to give, and this creates a perpetual leverage, a line going straight down to potentially infinity.
Wow.
Right?
Imagine like being able to help like churches and veterans with this.
You can help anybody you choose. Those are just people that I felt, because I was obviously, you and I both 6'5". I'm 370 right now, but we're too big to have been in the military, right? It'd be too easy of a target to, blind men.
I've done a little bit of Marine, but they threw me out of there.
Yeah. And so I obviously fully respect the great freedoms we enjoy over here. So doing something for the veterans, which I feel have been absolutely let down in so many ways. So yeah, I have the ability with this program, if I choose to, say instead of giving me money to start, I can choose to say, I'm going to gift you that $500, that $1,500 to do 500 and the $1,000 one, or 3,500 if I want to do the 500, the 1,000, and the 2,000. I can choose whatever I want to gift them to then have them be in my system, and now they can go just be in the standpoint of receiving. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's next to nothing for that monthly thing, and then they have an option where someone can join it for life after they've received a couple things and be like, you know what, I'm going to take one of these $500 things, and it's less than 500, but they can take that and pay for it. That whole system that manages everything, keeps track, and has all the training. I've never seen a program. Obviously, you got something that's been going successfully since 2001, but this actual funnel and the system and trainings have been going since 2004. They have posted every single call since 2009. They started recording those and putting those on there. So the archives of the trainings and the background to be able to track it, right? I was introduced to this in 2011 first, but I didn't do anything with it, right? I was already doing all the big stuff I was doing, and I didn't need it in my mind. And I just kind of, but I was aware of it, saw it. So I can absolutely verify that it's been around since then, but obviously it doesn't make sense for, they've got every recording back to 2009 and proof all the way back to 2001. But my point is, nothing in the world of advertising stays around if it's not working. And now it's in 43 some odd countries where, like in Canada, for example, there's no limit to how much you can gift somebody and then not have to pay taxes on it. If I want to give somebody $1 million, right, they don't have to pay taxes on it. They're just like, oh, thank you, Uncle Rick,
Wow. Just incredible, brother. Wow. Man, we show you guys know we try to keep the show within less than an hour. We have 47 minutes, Rick. So I have a few more questions here for you, brother. Just incredible. Wow. For anybody that want to learn more, so they can go to gettimeandfinancialfreedom.com. For some of you guys listening to us here later, you guys know every Monday at 7:17 a.m. Pacific, we release a new episode of the CarlosInspireShow.com. Wow, incredible. And Rick, I mean, you built wealth by empowering others to do the same, which I love how you do it. Can you share a story where giving back led to an unexpected yet profound return?
Well, yeah, I was, again, I've lost over 300 pounds I totaled a Ferrari with my son. I hurt my back. I put on a bunch of weight. Unfortunately, I was immobilized, bedridden. And at that heavier stage, I was at a millionaire school, which I thought was for millionaires, but it was to show people how to become millionaires. So it wasn't my actual audience, because at that time I could only help people that were accredited investors. So I thought it was a millionaire school for millionaires. It was a school to learn how to become millionaires. But anyway, I showed up, and the very next, 2 days later, I was going to a warrior camp put on by the same company, which was a very high intensity, exertion physical. It's called warrior camp, for crying out loud. So the list of things to bring was intimidating to someone of my overweight status, out of shape, and bad knees and the whole thing. And the very first moment of this millionaire school, they said, hey, welcome everybody, blah, blah, blah. And I'll make it very short because I could go on and on with this story. They had a guy that had passed away at one of their warrior camps. And I'm like, wait, what? And I'm picturing him to be some overweight guy, perhaps. They showed a picture of the guy, super healthy looking. I can't remember a time I've been more fearful of seeing that photo and seeing this family. And then to find out that they had no life insurance, no nothing. They'd been living as missionaries, basically, wife and 2 children, going place to place, living off of whatever people give them, letting them stay where they want to stay as they help this organization and that organization, like salt of the earth. And then he dies. And so they were asking people that throughout the whole week, they were going to be doing these incredible silent auctions, right? People donated like a week at their, Fifth Avenue apartment in New York, looking over Central Park, and people donated their 5-day, condo down in Cabo or something, and all these incredible things. And I had put on there that we would donate all this money, but they said, we can't let you donate shares. We have to research the company. And I said, okay. So even though I hadn't been doing it for years, he says, why don't you offer to do the bottom line consulting you used to do for the billion-dollar companies. And I said, I don't do that anymore. And I'm super busy. It's very time consuming. He's like, well, that's what I'd like you to do. And so I put that on a piece of paper. I said, whatever you have the guts to give, to this wonderful family, I will double it using things that have nothing to do with what you're doing now. I will double that money. So guarantee I will work with you until I've doubled whatever. If it's 100,000, if it's $1 million, I don't care. And so I put that on there. And then, after like lunch breaks, when there's a lull, people come in, they're a little lethargic in the afternoon. So they would do a live auction instead of the silent auction. They would bring one of those things and do a live auction. And anyway, this guy, T. Harv Eker comes up and he says, hey, Rick, I'm going to be auctioning you off. I'm going to be auctioning your offer off tomorrow after lunchtime. And I go, no, you're not. No, you're not. Like mine's, I don't want to be up there one of those like bid for the Bachelor. No one bids on me, like it's so boring. And so like, please don't do that.
Live auctions are intense.
I was like, no, but there he was. He was off to the races. And so I was like, okay, well, that night, my little son, who was only 6 or so at that time, he lost the first person. We talked about death and he could explain it backwards and forwards to me, what happens when somebody dies. But it was the first time he lost somebody. His grandmother on his mom's side passed away and he was devastated. And he was crying for me to come home. It was already so late at night when I found out that he wasn't going to be able to see me that night anyway. So the first opportunity would be in the morning. I was in Vegas and he was in Los Angeles. First opportunity would be in the morning or at, after my talk in the afternoon. And I sat here and, told him what was going on. This family lost their father, lost their husband, lost this and lost that, and lost their dad. And they didn't have like what we have. And I'm like, how could I be trying to communicate such a high level conversation to this little 6-year-old? But that's how I always talked to him, like he was an adult. And when I got done, he regurgitated to me through the tears in his eyes. He's like, so, these 2 kids lost their dad and she lost her husband. I'm like, yeah. And they don't have money. Like, I'm like, yeah. And I said, so best case scenario, I can see you in the morning, or I have an opportunity to help this family and I could see you in the afternoon after you have lunch. And he sat there and thought about it. He goes, well, as much as I want to see you as soon as possible, he said, if you can help this family, like, then, I can wait till the afternoon. And I had tears in my eyes. I was just on one of those house phones and I, at my size and at that, I was, 475 pounds at that time. Like for me to get down on my knees with 8 knee surgeries, it was a difficult thing, but that's how we remember, I pray walking around, jogging, whatever. I don't have to be on my hands and knees to pray. But I got on my hands and knees and said, dear Lord, like, I don't need any edification. I don't need to have any, accolades or look like a rock star. But if you could make this the most incredible thing outside of anything anyone would ever expect, so I would know it was you. So to honor my son, right? And I had done, there's a little thing I call the Willy Wonka close, right? Like where, if you remember Willy Wonka, if he had told all the kids that were coming, hey guys, listen, at the end of this tour, I'm going to gift one of you my entire empire, right? We wouldn't have had the movie we had because they would have all been on their best behavior. No one would have been acting up and doing anything, but he didn't say that. He surprised it with the end. And when Charlie came back and gave that last gobsmacker after he was being so rude and so horrible, and then he turned like, Charlie, you did it. And right, gives the big reveal. So because T. Harv Eker had told me I couldn't gift, my wife and I had decided to give, $1 million of our, Australian Biofund Investments Limited, just not take any profit for ourselves, whatever these people wanted to invest in, which is what they were there for. We weren't at a bowling convention. We were at a millionaire school about investing. So it was right in alignment. But he says, hey, Rick, I'm sure it's amazing. I'm sure it's great, but we can't let you offer that, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, I can give it to anybody. So I said privately, and I'd never made this public, I said in my heart and said it to God, that whoever does, win, I'm going to give them whatever dollar amount they gave. I'm going to give them that in shares, which is supposed to go up and did go up by 5 or 10x at that, after that point. So, and then it's in Australia. So I said, I'll also take them and a partner, spouse, girlfriend, whoever, son, whoever they wanted to bring. I'll take them to Australia with a write-off of visiting the people that run the Australian Biofund, but we're going to make it a 2-week vacation and, write the whole thing off, and I'll take them on my dime, everything paid for. And then I was also going to give them a computer, right? Back in that day, this is back in 2007 or so, not 2004, I take it back, 2004. My son was born in 98, so do the math, 6 years old. And, computers were like $3 or $4 grand at that point. And so I was like, boom, we're going to do this, going to do that. And that was my little secret. And so now he's doing the event. And, T. Harv Eker is still, I think, the best in the world at introducing somebody. Like you think like, oh, it's not me. It must be, Superman coming in next. He did this amazing introduction. He starts doing this auction. There's 3 people that will not put their hand down, and the bidding's got up to $25,000. And this is, again, people that aren't millionaires. It's just normal people. I'm sure that by statistics, there's some millionaires in a 1,200 person audience, but it's not my normal audience of accredited investors. But he says, oh my gosh, they're not putting their hands down. He doesn't want it to get too crazy for them. So he says, Rick, are you in the room? Coming up here. He brings me up, and when a speaker, turns off their mic, they lean in and they're like, they want to say something private, so they shut off their mic thing, right? Yep. So he does exactly that. I see him reach his hand down. He looks like he's touching his mic. He's like, Rick, let me ask you something. He's like, and I leaned in for a private little something. He's like, would you do it for all 3 of them? So we don't have to turn anyone away, right? Raise 3 times the amount of money. So all of them put in 25 grand. It was crazy. The whole crowd going, and I'm over here freaking out like, no, I won't. I didn't want to do this for one person, let alone 3 people doing bottom line consulting. Like, no. But I was like, okay.
I got Steve Hard put you on the spot.
and so we're all sinners, right? Like let's just, I'm a sinner, you're a sinner. Everyone on this planet.
Oh yeah, I always tell people, we gotta keep it real. Document the good, the bad, the ugly, and just keep it real, because then people love that.
Here's my sin. Ready? First thought, I'm sitting there like, first of all, I don't want to do this for 3 people, right? For sure. But $75,000 going to this family was heartwarming, to say the least. Second thought was, you know what? Forget all this stuff. I was going to do it for 1, but I'm not doing it for 3, right? The shares, I didn't mind giving people the shares, which was the biggest gift of all those things. But 3 trips, for 2 people each, and 3 computers, like that was more than I was, I wasn't, doing all that. And I just thought, that is ugly, right? That's not me at all. Abundance minded, giving, and I just, that thought was out of my mind as fast as it came in. But I'm being honest, it did pop in there for sure. So we get done. It's a big moment. They break, go back to the table. The 3 of you go back to the table, whatever. And I'm walking out, and some old guy, thinly hair, like in his 70s, grabs me very firmly. I'd met him before at previous events, but I didn't know him by name. He's like, Rick, Brent Nielsen, right? He says, I want to be your 4th, but I'm going to the warrior camp next week. Is it still possible for me to do? I won't be back home, so I have to be in person to send a wire at that time. Right now we can do it on our phones, but back then you had to go into your bank. And he's like, it's a local thing. And I said, buddy, I'm sure they will take your money in a week from now. I know I'm going to be at the same warrior camp, so I won't be able to start helping anybody till after we get back from that anyway. And so he went back and he was the 4th. So $100,000. And the total that was raised for that whole week was like 214, including my 100. So of course it felt elevated. Of course it felt great. And I thought that was the end of the magic. We went to warrior camp next week. Only one of the 4 people had anything that would be considered like wealth. She owned 5 of those Curves studios for women, but the other 3 didn't have money. Like it was like they didn't even have things that I could grow, but I did these amazing things for them, way more than doubled their donations and things like that. But the biggest magic of this whole thing, this whole center of you're asking me, was after the warrior camp, there was the gal that did the 5 Curves. She was one of those helping. She just donated her time to kind of help the other people going through this warrior camp. And she roomed with a gal that I'd seen at other conferences, and blah, blah, blah. She had some massage studio up in San Luis Obispo, beautiful area, very ritzy area, but she wasn't ritzy. She had a massage studio with her partner. And I waved at her, said hi. I get in my car. I got the door open still, sliding my legs in, and she traversed like 40 feet in a millisecond. And she was startled me at my door. She's got tears in her eyes, and this is a badass. She does marathons that have a 3,000 square foot elevation change during the marathon. Like, kill me right now. And so she comes, she goes, listen, right? It's like, I don't even want to sign up for that. I don't ever want to be in that great a shape, But she said she was roommates with Deborah. She heard about the whole thing and what I was doing for her. And she goes, I don't have 25,000, but I really need the help. I said, Trisha, stop. I said, I've seen you give to so many people. You were giving all week. I said, I don't even do this. And I'm not getting any of the money anyway, right? It's all going to charity. I said, I would be honored to help you, right, in your massage business, right? Since I'm going to be doing it for 4 people, it's not going to be that hard to add another one. And so I started helping her in her business. She had a whole gift list of stuff that if we were successful, if we could make more money because her business was about to go under, these are things that she needed in her business, things that they would buy to expand and grow their business, add more facilities. So this wish list, if you will. And I go through and help her, and I do all this amazing stuff. And it's just amazing what we did just with her business and all the marketing and growing and tactics and things. So she's begging me saying, you've got to tell me how I can help you. I said, I honestly don't need your help, but $110 million net worth. Like I'm good, and she says, you have to. And she was so stern about it. She goes, what is it you actually do? And so I said, well, I help accredited investors and grow their money. And she says, why? I've got a lot of high-end clients and stuff. Anyway, she invited me, she was telling them to come see me. She had about 13 women that wanted to come down, but for 13 older women to come down to LA, she says, why don't you come up here and we can do like a meeting at a house? And I was so arrogant, that I was like, I don't do Tupperware parties. Like I speak in front of like huge audience. They pay $26,750 just to be sitting in the audience. That doesn't get them an investment. That just gets them access to me. I don't drive up to 3 hours. And she's like, well, why wouldn't you? And she offered to do a 4-handed massage with her and her partner for me and all this stuff. And I finally said, like, well, why wouldn't I? 13 women are going to get together. So I eventually go up there, like completely be of service, right? I'm just, like, gosh, if I can help these women. And she's used to the T. Harv Eker thing where they, stampede at the end of an offer and run to the back room and, sign up. And so here we do this amazing event. There was only one guy there. His name was Fred Bond, right? My name's Frederick. So I remember the Fred thing. And of course, Bond, James Bond, would never normally remember his name, but this beautiful mansion of a house. I mean, it was one of those taking advantage of the build codes where all they used was the frame of a doorway and then rebuilt this $12 million mansion on a, and so here we are in this incredible environment doing this incredible presentation. We had a chili feed and everything else. And I mean, I had to stop from doing backflips because I knew it had gone so well. All the questions were buying questions and how do we actually participate? These weren't like negative Nelly questions, And so I'm over here trying to keep a poker face and not, do the Jim Carrey. Oh yeah. And so I walk out to be helpful and I'm packing something out to the back of her vehicle. And I didn't even know she was out there. I saw the hatchback of her SUV open, but I didn't know she was behind it. And I come around with the big chili, crock pot thing. And she was back there and this total badass was crying. And I was like, oh, did you fall down? Did you hurt yourself? I mean, I thought it must be physical pain because it's such a badass. And she's like, no, she goes, I'm just so sorry I wasted your time. Like you came up here and, I appreciate it so much. And I just wanted to help you, but I know that nobody did anything. And I was like, what? I was like, they're all going to do something. I said, they're all going to, and she just couldn't believe. She's like, what? Nobody, I go, they're not, nobody in this world is going to want to talk about their finances or talk about how much money they have. Trust me, every single one of those people are going to do something. Right. And when all was said and done, which wasn't too long after that, I was able to ship her every single one of those items, what I typically pay in referrals, right? It wasn't anything extra. I wasn't, I'm going to 10X what she was supposed to get. Nope. Just gave her what she was supposed to get for doing all that for me. And I was able to give her entire wish list, which was, tens of thousands of dollars for this was, light equipment and office equipment, all sorts of things. And I sent the printer to me first, because I put a little surprise inside on the glass thing, shut it, repacked it, and then shipped that on, right? So when they called me, her and her partner were just in tears. They were like, what is all this for? Why are you doing this for us? We can't accept this, And I said, I'm not doing anything. I said, this is what I would normally pay someone for referrals, for all that. And they were like, this can't be. And I was like, it is. And I said, and then I could tell that they hadn't seen the check, right, that I put in the printer. I said, have you unpacked everything? Yeah, we unpacked everything. I said, have you made a copy yet? Have you sent a fax or anything? And they were like, what? No, just we plugged it in, but we didn't, send anything. I said, well, go over and it's got a flatbed thing on there. You can put it through the feeder or the flatbed. And I said, there's something on the flatbed for you. And I could hear them. They walked away about 10, 20 feet or probably. And I could hear the squeals from all the way there. And they just came back to the phone. And I said, this is all just what you were supposed to get. This is not me. I'm not doing anything extra. This is just what you earned from these incredible referrals. And anyway, that was such a life-changing moment where I'm over here, obviously going up there to try to give money to this original family. And then I'm trying to just help out. I'm just trying to apply. I'm not getting anything for it. And then here, this other person who doesn't have the ability to pay into the charity, but still wants my help. And I'm like, sure, I'm still just trying to give. And God's just like, you can't outgive God. I'm over here giving. And then here's her little voice. She's like, it's an imbalance. I have to do something for you. Please tell me what you do. I said no. She persisted. And finally we did this meeting, and it was over $13 million. Each of those people did over $1 million collectively, meaning somebody did 4, one person did 500, but I'm saying collectively it was over $1 million each for those 13 widows sitting in this house, this little Tupperware party, if you will. And so I started doing those over and over again, meaning that little moment led to me doing in-home things, which I'd never done that before. Like, that was a part of my business. If you added up those little tiny things where people would get together, 5, sometimes 10 people. Hey, these are my friends. They want to hear about this. And I was like, sure, I would come over. I'd never done that before. And so it wasn't just the 13 million that I brought in, which I didn't make all of that. I make about sometimes a third, sometimes a quarter, but I make a lot of it. And, to come from somebody who I was just trying to give and be nice to. So it constantly always echoes in, you can't outgive God.
Wow, man. Amen to that. But to talk about trading expectations for appreciation, my friend. Wow. And Rick, as we get over here to the end of this incredible episode, man, we're going to take this one to the grave. What an incredible show. Where is the best place for people to continue this conversation with you? Where do you hang around the most, on social media or a particular site? What is the best place for them to hang around with you? And part 2, how can they get up to 8 days, 7-night resort stay that we talk about at the beginning of this episode? For everybody that stayed with us here until the end, for everybody that stay here until the end, shout out, because you are a doer. So where's the best place, Rick, that you spend the most time on social media or site that they can continue a conversation with, they can reach out to you? And then part 2, how they can get up to 8 days, 7-night resort.
Thank you. Well, the best place is to go to the site, gettimeandfinancialfreedom.com. I'm the only person that gets any of that information. It's not sold to anybody. So we'll ask you, after you watch a little short 5-minute something, before you go into these 7 steps. Again, this is even if you're not interested in the offer, you should study it from a standpoint of watching something that's been working. There's not many funnels in this world that have been working since 2004, over 20 years. So go to that site, go through the entire steps. It's going to take you about an hour, right? So it's a commitment of time. And I'm stealing something from the timeshare industry, right? This has nothing to do with timeshare, has nothing to do with travel. But I'm sitting there saying that my family never got to go on a vacation. My mom drugged my dad and us because we didn't have money for a babysitter. You're not supposed to bring your kids to a timeshare presentation. But my mom was promised a vacation, right? Resort stay somewhere that we could go to and have an overnight stay for several days. And so we went only to get that vacation, no purchase necessary, blah, blah, blah. And we went there. We ended up being one of those families that actually invested and bought the timeshare at the end of it. So I'm ethically bribing you by saying, if anyone on here, and you can forward this message to somebody else if you want them to get a free vacation, because I'm going to do this until my eyes bleed, because we asked thousands and thousands of people, if you got time and financial freedom, where you had money, you had time, and what would you do? Besides the obvious of paying off bills and things you've been, burning holes in your socket, what would you do for you? And by far, like over 90% of the answer was all about travel. I would take my family here. I would go here. And so that's why I'm giving you this amazing gift. So you'll be able to choose from 48 different resorts, 4 days, 3 nights in America, in the continental US. You'll be able to choose from places in Mexico, which is a 5-day, 4-night. Go to where I used to live on both Oahu and Maui, and you could go stay in, 6 days and 5 nights in Hawaii. And then the ultimate, I built a house and lived for many years in Thailand, one of my favorite places in the world. You can go to Europe, you can go to Australia, but Thailand has up to an 8-day, 7-night where you're staying in a king suite, where it doesn't just have a pool, your own suite has its own pool. So it's like the most luxurious thing, and you can actually extend and stay another week if you want for a nominal amount of money. So these are gifts, they're up to 18 months you can use. So you don't have to do it right away. You have to activate it within a week, but you can use it for up to 18 months afterwards. And you don't have to actually join or participate in my activity here. You just have to go through and watch the presentation, and it has a place for you to contact me afterwards. Contact me. Hey, this is Rebecca. This is Jim. I was on Carlos's show and I watched the whole thing, and boom, you're going to get that amazing gift from me to you. And if somebody is in this call right now that says, man, I couldn't even fly somewhere to these amazing places, I just want to go to a local hotel, I will also give up to $500 to that person in hotel rewards that they can use as discounts off of their local, and they're good at hotels all over the world, but I'm saying you could use them specifically in your local area as well. So they don't have to go to a resort if they don't want to, but they'll choose either or. And there is no timeshare requirement when you go to these resort stays. So I just want to make that clear.
No presentations, right?
But yeah,
wow, no, but this is
that's
incredible.
the best place. And if they just want to get on my calendar, they can go to buycashflows.com, and that's just a Calendly link. They can book a time or just text or call, because I'm the guy I've always prided myself because I've lived all over the world. Most people can't track me. I'm more hard to find than Waldo. And so, my phone number, which I'm not going to give out on this, but we can put that in and you can all, text me. But I would just say, go to my buycashflows.com site, which is just a Calendly link. And you don't have to do the cash flows. Just book a time on there and we'll talk about this, talk about anything you want to talk about. I'm here to give my time. But the biggest place is go to that site, get timeandfinancialfreedom.com. You've got all my contact info, including my phone number, direct call, text me, whatever you feel most comfortable with. And I'd be happy to talk to you, answer your questions, and show you how you can create these endless streams, what we call perpetual leverage, through this amazing gifting ability.
Wow, man. Just awesome, brother. Always giving, always adding massive value. Just incredible. And as you all know, guys, that takes us to the last final question of the show that many legends, friends of Rick and I that been here on this show, like our good friend Frank Shankwitz, founder of Make-A-Wish, and is no longer here, but we have this question that I'm about to ask Rick. Recorded that, like I told, we're going to take this episode to the grave. Incredible episode. But my friend, it's 50 years from now. You're now 100 years old, and it's your eulogy. And your son, Drew, and if I still happen to be alive, we're going to be there, and he's going to be reading your eulogy. And they're going to say, Rick, a.k.a. Grunden, incredible visionary entrepreneur, helped so many people around the world, was ... In your own words, Rick, who was Rick Grunden?
Well, I'd like to first hope is mention that, my mom is still living today. My dad has passed in my arms several years ago now, but I would first like to have them mention how great of a son I was. I just watched an interview with RuPaul, who I haven't had much exposure to, and he talked about the greatest moment of his life with all the things he's ever done was the one time he got to take care of his mother the night before she died and clean her backside, just like she did for him when he was a baby, and to circle around. And so my greatest joy that I've had was the honor of doing that for both my parents when they were, my dad was dying, my mom almost died, and I was taking care of both of them. So that would be the greatest thing. First thing would be how great of a son I was, that I've given up my life. I just, as you know, I just left my amazing $15 million mansion on the water and selling it to come up here and take care of my mom, move into a very humble little 2-bedroom place because that's all she needs and wants. Bought her a car, and I'm here 24/7 because she's starting to have some issues. So first thing, great son. Next thing, great father. And I've been there for my son. He's truly one of my best friends. You've had the opportunity to meet him and get to know him as an adult. And it's one of the greatest relationships I have in my life. And then thirdly, my relationship with God is this, that, he was a super strong Christian that never gave up his faith, no matter what dark times came to him, no matter how many times he was beaten down, just never letting go of that light, and didn't just keep it to himself, but shared the gift with other people. And so I'm constantly witnessing to people, sharing that light, explaining why I believe the things I do, inviting them to have a relationship themselves. And that, I think, is my greatest contribution on this planet. And then, of course, the latter things was the athlete, the businessman, and the wonderful friend that I've been to so many people and have received, obviously, from other people.
Wow. What an incredible answer, my brother. Now, God bless you, my friend. Rick Grunden in the house. Shout out my brother, Drew. Love you, kid. And your mom, give her a big hug from me, my brother. And yeah, guys, there you guys have it. Another incredible episode. As you guys know, life is all about the mission, never the commission. And you guys know, my friends, anybody that's struggling out there, before you pull that trigger, jump that bridge, reach out, man. Reach out to Rick, reach out to myself. You guys know we survived some, we beat some unbeatable odds, seeing the devils in the eyes. And always remind yourselves, imagine Rick, 6'5", 370 pounds, me 6'5", 305, looking at you and in the eyes and saying the days that breaks us are truly the days that makes us. God bless you all.
Amen. Thank you, brother.